is it possible to change things? Can I rise above the flood? Will the process cleanse my soul? Or is it always in the blood?
Hi. I want to welcome everybody back to the In the Blood podcast. My name is AC. With me, as always, is, I was going to say the mushroom to my cream of soup, but that just sounds weird. With me is Jason Moore.
Well, you said it anyway, so yeah.
And today is, I guess, whatever date it is you're listening to this show.
Yep. Yeah, I think
Welcome.
we should stop with dates because people listen to it all over the time, all over the place.
And I finally, every week, I'm just getting super, super confused. I mean, I started doing the date for the Call Me Tony podcast, which is easy because I record and release on the same day. This show is a little different because normally we record on Tuesdays, release on Fridays. And for some reason, just adding 3 to today's date just like goes right through my mind. And
That addition is complicated.
anyways, enough about me and my incompetence with the math. You
How's your
got an
week been?
interesting message.
Oh, yeah, okay. I was just going to ask you, how's your week? All right. So, my amazing Aunt Pam got a hold of me because, surprise to me, she's a listener, which is very cool. And she's interested in hearing our opinion on friendships in the workplace. You know, about trust, airing out grievances, exaggerated truths. Also bringing up you know, anger leading to unpleasant situations. You know, if I say something to this person, should I be honest with them? If it's something that can get me fired, you know, that kind of stuff. And I thought it was an amazing topic. So put whatever else we were going to talk about on the back burner and let's take on this one.
No, I agree. I mean, there's a lot going on there. You and I, we've got some experience with being friends at work. I mean, we met at work.
Mhm.
Our friendship grew initially at work. I mean, since then, we've worked multiple jobs together as coworkers. I've worked for you at certain times. You've worked for me at certain times.
Mhm.
You know, it's not always been a cakewalk, and there's a lot of stuff that comes up.
Yep.
I mean, even broadening it slightly, you know, as far as like relationships outside the workplace overlapping with workplace. I mean, like I've had a little bit of experience working with you and my ex-wife at the same time, and I don't know, sometimes that could just get complicated. You had an issue with her, I had an issue with her. We're all expected to play nice and be professional, when
Mhm.
really I think that was the last thing anybody wanted. So, yeah.
And then on top of that, we're making friends with sub trades and other people we're working with, like when we worked at Stream and we had Team Bergen. You know, we've got a wealth of experience of working together and having other people who have become friends or not so much.
No, it's I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot going on here. I mean, it can be so hard because at best, when you're at work, I feel like in order to get along in a professional environment, there's a certain degree of having to prostitute your own values for the greater good.
Right.
Usually it's with customers and, you know, coworkers, I typically find them pretty easy to deal with because I've always looked at coworkers like, okay, you're somebody I get paid to spend time with. The way I relate to you, it's work. It's not real life. I'm here to fund my real life.
Right.
But I mean, this whole idea of talking about like what happens when real life interacts with workplace,
Hmm.
this is so big, I'm not even exactly certain where to start.
Or you know, in our case, when real life ends up smacking you in the face, and for some reason, through happenstance, you just can't avoid the other person. That's exactly what happened to us.
Oh God, I tried avoiding you so hard.
Uh-huh. But with that, there's so many things that come on. Like, I you and I despised each other, disposed each other.
We
You and
try
I,
to dispose of each other.
yeah, we despised each other, and there was some stuff going on at work that, in my opinion, I didn't think was cool. Um, Lots of booze. Bobby,
Well, I can't just point the finger at Bobby. I had a bit of a problem back then.
well, that's what I'm saying. The two is,
Hmm.
and I had the conundrum with, well, I don't like you, but in the same respect, should I say something? You know, and part of me said, you know what, yeah, you should because he's a fucking douchebag. But the other part of me that loyalist in me, I just couldn't pull the trigger. So with that came a decision like, okay, you know what? I am just going to avoid the motherfucker. I don't want to deal with him. I'm just going to avoid him and do my crap. And then, of course, we started up Team Bergen, and I still didn't like him, but I loved the idea of being against Carl more than not liking you.
Well, I mean, yeah, ganging up on a manager. I mean, truth is, I didn't like you either, but it was one of those situations where the enemy of my enemy is slightly less annoying.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I don't like that enemy of my enemy is my friend bullshit. Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know. There's one thing that you and I never had a problem with was ganging up on other people in the workplace, and I think that was one of those things where I think it taught us to stand together, right? I mean,
Right.
from what I've observed in the workplace over the years, and now that I think about this topic a little bit more, I mean, one of those struggles that tends to come up in the workplace when you're friends is that the the challenge of the friendship can often serve as like something that like pulls you apart as coworkers. It causes a division. And the challenges of being coworkers also can complicate the friendship. In our case, in the early days, maybe it's because we didn't want the friendship. We weren't really paying much attention to it.
Yeah.
But whether or not we realized that we were learning to stand shoulder to shoulder, we were learning to have each other's back without the the competition, the rivalry, or any of like the petty outside or inside drama playing in. Because I didn't look at you as a person. You probably didn't look at me as one either. We were pieces of a situation,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
but these pieces they took root and they grew into something more. But I don't want to get like too deep into just like the fact that we became friends at work. I mean, I feel like that's an episode in itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I want to clarify something also. We did tag team a lot of people, but we were never bullies. It was in defense of being bullied. Because like Carl was always doing, always trying to bully us and make us feel less than, and you're
Well, it
lucky
was
you're
a
still
hostile
working
workplace.
here, and if you don't come outside and help me sell my firewood, I'm going to fire you, and yeah. So it was always in defense of the right to be equal, not in a, well, we're a team, so we're going to bully you bullshit. We never did that.
Okay, well, why don't we try flashing forward a few years? Because I'm thinking about one particular workplace where our friendship really, I think, was more of a factor. I don't know if you remember when we were working for that guy Ali renovating that apartment rental block.
Mm-hmm. When I almost got sick in the apartment because I started smoking again. Yeah, I remember that.
But there was a situation where, for whatever reason, he just developed a dislike for you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a young child at the time and I had no backup income, and he wanted to fire both of us because he couldn't stand you. And like that really presented a like the first real challenge for me of trying to combine our friendship with our job, because it's like the thought of losing that paycheck before having something else in place was downright terrifying for me. So I was like faced with this idea, like, do I sell out my friend for begging for my job? Do I stand up for my friend and potentially screw over my family by begging for our jobs? Or do I stand up for what's right for both you and me and leaving our egos intact and tell this guy to take his job and shove it? Like there was a lot going on for me at that time.
Yep. And this, just to be clear to everybody out there, this was more of a you thing than me thing because I didn't know about it till after you words when you told me. Continue.
So, I mean, it was something I carried some guilt with for a while because I did go back in and talk to him and I said, look, like if you want to get rid of this guy, like whatever, but if you're firing us because you don't like him, I think that's a bullshit move. Just have the balls to tell him you don't like him. Why am I getting punished? Why are you taking food out of my child's mouth? Because you got an issue with this guy.
Right.
And when I talked to another friend about it, the other friend said, "Well, no, you were well justified in taking that approach. Like you weren't selling out Jason, you were protecting your family." But I mean, it didn't feel like protecting my family. It felt like selling you out. And I don't know if you remember at that time, but I kind of like I laid low for a while afterwards. Like we weren't really interacting quite as much because like I just didn't feel right about looking you in the eye and like casually sharing a coffee, knowing that I didn't stick up for you behind the scenes what I probably should have in my mind.
Mhm. And I personally had no issues with it. If he had a problem with me, then come to me and tell me. It should not in any way, shape, or form affect your health. And this isn't because you're a friend of mine. I'm saying this because I'm a big boy. I wear big boy pants. And if somebody doesn't like me and doesn't want me on their job site, then they can come and tell me. It has nothing to do with you. And I was more infuriated after you told me that he put you in that position because it didn't bother me at all that you took that position. Not at all. It if it were the same situation reverse, I can guarantee you 100%. I would have said, okay, well, you know what? We're both working here. We're both doing a good job. But if you see a justified reason to get rid of him, then your ass is going to go tell him. Don't come whining to me. I'm a subcontractor. He's a subcontractor. Why am I going to lose my job? Have the balls to talk to him. So I absolutely held nothing against you. But the complications that would have or did come from it because he did that, the guilt you felt for how long, and I don't remember how long it was afterwards that you told me about it, but you carried that for a while. And I understand your guilt, but in the same respect, like nobody should put, if somebody's a true friend, they will stand there and say, no, do for your family. I can make do. You should never guilt a friend into carrying your water, ever.
Yeah, there's one other situation I could think of too. I mean, just talking about like your aunt had brought up like so many different things that could be problematic in the workplace, and one of them I think was like something to do with like being a sounding board. I remember you were struggling with, I can't remember which company it was we were working for, but you felt like the boss was just being kind of like a jerk with you, and you're like, I don't understand. Like, I feel like I'm doing good work. And you asked me straight up as a friend, like, what am I doing wrong? And when I told you what I saw you were doing wrong, because like I was speaking, I don't know, like if I was prioritizing being a friend or being a coworker, but I mean, it was definitely just answering your direct question directly with maybe not enough consideration for how that was going to land. But when I told you, like, you're going too slow and it's like, you're using piano precision while building like a sun deck, which is a waste of time. It seemed to offend you on some level at the time,
Right.
and it caused a bit of, I'll say just tension. I don't know like exactly how to
A
word
little
it.
bit of
You probably
turmoil.
would have a better idea than me.
A little bit of turmoil. Yeah, I remember that. Because the one thing that I'm gonna put this, the boss was telling me was that he wanted good work. He didn't want a rush job. Make sure things were done properly. So I was using my woodworking precision and making sure that things were done properly. And to my face, I was getting, if it takes a bit longer, I don't mind. Just make sure it's done properly. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So the offense in the moment that was taken wasn't because of how you said it. It was because I was getting two different messages. He's telling you I'm too slow, but I'm being told that, well, take your time, do it properly.
So it's not like we put ourselves against each other. It's almost like the boss, and I like how you put that in quotes because that guy really was an incompetent fool. Well, it's almost like the boss put us on a collision course with each other.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was like he wanted to see what was happening or he was hoping to have one of us neutralize the other because he was too cheap to pay both of us or what was going on.
Yeah, fair enough.
Maybe we should have him on the show and call him out for being a douche.
Yeah, we should post that video of that deck for people to see.
Oh,
Remember when we pushed it down?
yeah.
Um, so changing gears just a little bit. So other than you and I, outside you and I, think of a time when you were at work talking with somebody, whether it's Nick or Bobby or somebody I don't know. And when were you, have you ever been, or did you ever want to discuss something with somebody in the workplace that might have got you fired, but you still needed to vent to somebody. So who do I trust?
Yeah. I mean, it can get tricky sometimes when you work a lot of shifts with somebody, there is always going to be that social element to a job. I don't care what the job is, unless you're working completely by your lonesome. But anytime you're working with other people, it's just we're social creatures. We're gonna talk. And there are times where like after putting in all these hours, I mean, it's like you spend more time, more of your waking hours anyways, with your coworkers than you do with your family and your friends and your loved ones sometimes. And it becomes really, really easy to confuse a coworker for a friend or a family or a loved one. Your subconscious sometimes will put them inside of that circle of trust where they just don't even slightly belong.
Right.
And I had one situation. I'm not going to name names, but it was one of those things where, like, in the moment, I felt a combination of like, A, I need to vent, and B, this person is a trustworthy person to vent to. Like, I was having serious issues with the way that um, somebody in management was approaching their job. There was some dishonesty, there was some unethical behavior, there was just some stuff I didn't like, which in and of itself I may not have cared, but the fact that this person was a bit of a condescending ass with me too, it's just everything converged and I had a big hate on for this person and I needed to go somewhere with the feelings. And it's like talking to you, talking to my wife, talking to somebody outside the workplace is like, how are they possibly going to understand like where this fire in my belly is coming from? Coworker seemed like the perfect fit. This particular coworker especially, and I went ahead and I said something. In fact, I said everything. I let it all out and I felt better. And this person looked me in the eye and said, "Don't worry, it goes no farther than us." It took all of about 30 minutes. I got a call from the manager. "Oh, I heard you were talking to so and so and you had some interesting things to say." Long story short, it ended up almost costing me my job.
Mhm.
And it certainly cost me my ability to happily work with this person anymore. It turned like the social component of the job went sour. I hated that person after that.
Yep.
I eventually got him fired because I was looking for a reason.
Mhm. That's a heavy place to put somebody in. To turn your back like that. Huh. Wow.
And I'm not proud of like costing somebody their livelihood, but I was still a lot more hot-headed and petty when I was younger. And yeah, I guess shit happens. I mean, I don't know how it affected this other person, like what their view of it was. Maybe they thought they were doing the right thing. It's just like I hate all the shit that comes up when you have to like start asking these questions,
Yep.
like in the moment, anyways.
I've been lucky because, well, for instance, Nick, he at that time was my go-to, and I never had to worry about it going back to the bosses. He was always trustworthy with me. I never, when I had a beef with the people where we were working. One time I talked to Nick because of the way I was being treated by Carl, and this is probably just before Team Bergen. And I talked to Nick about it, and he didn't go and tell anybody, but he told me, you definitely should go talk to HR because that kind of BS shouldn't happen. You're going to be fired for not doing. Remember earlier I made the comment about helping me with my firewood.
Yeah.
That's what started my hate on for him because he told me, well, I'm doing it in the stream parking lot, therefore you got to help me. And if you don't, I'll get your ass fired. Well, how do I handle this? Like, he's a boss. Do I go to HR? I was in my 20s at the time. I didn't know. I didn't. So I talked to Nick, and in this case, I got really lucky because every time I talked to him about something, it didn't go anywhere except for advice where I should go or not to go, or. So my experience for the most part with that, and then you and I became friends, and every time I told you something, I knew you kept it under your hat. So I'm very lucky in the fact that I got pretty good background with that kind of stuff. What about anger in the workplace?
That's something I always struggled with, and not necessarily because of like a friendship component.
Mhm.
As you know, for most of my adult life, I worked myself into the damn ground.
Yep.
And not because I loved to work, it was because I loved the people I was working to provide for. But work was always one of those places where like I hate being here. I hate the environment. Like I got sensory issues and I was working as a contractor. I can't handle dirty hands. I can't handle loud noises. I can't handle unpredictability, like mentally speaking. But these were the things I was fully immersed in, like sometimes like 16, 18 hours a day,
Right.
sometimes 7 days a week. And so it triggered something in me where I wasn't usually very pleasant.
Yep.
So it didn't really take much for people to bring out the ugly side of me. So I don't know that I can fairly represent like how anger presents in the workplace. All I know is that it was a lot of work on my part trying to keep things under a lid so that I could successfully interact with the people that I needed to successfully interact with.
Yeah.
I mean, you've worked with me when I'm in that frame of mind,
Not at
not
all.
to deflect, but I think you're in a better position to speak to that than maybe I am.
Well, for the most part, I didn't have many issues because I loved what I did. I loved the people I'm working with. Half the time, I didn't have anybody other than my kids, like a significant other. So knowing I was providing for them, for me, was a positive. The people I excited about going to work because I liked the people I'm working with. I didn't have a lot of anger. I didn't have a lot of um, pissy moments. You know, I'm not saying it didn't happen. You know, there was a time when when we were working for Ali, and I went at him in the garage, in the underground, and he was treating me like a bag of crap. And I think it was just a couple of weeks before you told me about what happened, because you told me like a week and a half after the job ended. And this was in the last few days of us working there. And he approached me and informed me that I should never have been on his workplace, and that I wasn't talented enough, and I was here too long, there too short, on and on and on. And I just let go. And it's not something that built up. It was instantaneous, because up until that point, he didn't say anything to me. He was always bitching at you about me. And when he actually came at me, he didn't come at me and hey, let's rectify this. Let's make this a better situation. So, next time we work together, because we all knew the job was coming to an end. And yeah, he came at me and I just absolutely lost it. Told him where to go, how to get there, what boat to do it on. Oh, it was ridiculous. And that's probably the angriest I've ever been at a job. Like, I was ready to throw down. Did I handle it properly? No, probably not. Not at all.
Yeah, I kind of wish you had thrown down like I had it coming.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something near the beginning of what you were sharing that kind of actually reminded me of like something that made you incredibly difficult for me as an individual to work with. You were talking about like how you always enjoyed the job. You enjoyed what we were doing. That used to just like really get under my skin, because I'm thinking like I'm having the most miserable time of my life, and I feel like you're gaslighting me by legitimately enjoying it, which obviously that wasn't the case. But it's like a case of like, fuck you for having fun in a place I'm not having fun in. It's like we're in prison. You're like, this is awesome.
Ooh, I didn't get bum run today. Look at my day is going awesome.
Yay.
Win. Wow. Like, I knew there was times when I was doing stuff, and there was times when I didn't. Now, here's another part of working in the workplace with people that I don't think was mentioned. If what I'm going to tell you was, let me know. But some things that I did, because I knew it pissed you off. Because sometimes you would say shit and be upset because I was happy on the job site. So I started that whoop whoop. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember.
You would get so mad, and inside I would be laughing so hard, because you would get so mad at me for having a good time on the job. I figured, you know what? I'm going to have even more of a good time.
Good times.
So for you, what was the hardest time you had in your working career that can currently come to mind?
As far as what relates to friendship,
And not necessarily, not me, but just in general.
well, this actually does relate to you. There was a situation where it was one of the times where you were working for me and I had to let you go. And it was really, really hard because I had to have a difficult conversation with you. Because I mean, I remember at the onset of this specific job, I, or near the onset, I should say, you had come to me, you had thought that you perceived the problem, and I had had a conversation with you that was something along the lines of like, so long as whatever you're doing here isn't interfering with my ability to make a living, we got no problems.
Oh, I remember that. Right.
But it got to the point where like I had to sit you down and say, look, like it's gotten to the point where you being here is interfering with my ability to make a living. and basically this is where we part ways. You had a bit of a different view of it, but I mean, that wasn't like us talking to friends as equals. This is where I had to like, I felt like I was like being a real dick, but I kind of had to play the boss card and say, like, this isn't really up for negotiation. This is literally where we part ways.
Yeah.
And it really, really didn't feel good,
Mhm.
probably for either of us. And I think we both agreed that we weren't going to let it affect the friendship. But I think it's not like it ended the friendship, but it certainly affected it at the time, I believe.
I do remember, and I remember like in my now this is 100% only from my viewpoint. I am not going to speak to how you felt because I didn't know, but I I was disappointed because I loved working. I loved working with you. You know, it was a bit of a shock to me, and I was disappointed. But in my head, it never affected our practical relationship because it was a work relationship. So, and for me, I always, even though we were friends on the job and we everybody knew it, and we brought our friendship into work. For me, our work relationship and our friend relationship were two totally different entities. So when you had to fire me, I had no issue with it in the sense that okay, he's being the boss, and this time I'm working for him, and I was hurt in the sense that shit, could I have changed the situation? Could I have made it better? Is there something that I missed that I could have done to change the situation? And because I didn't, it resulted in me losing that aspect of that job. I never, and I guarantee you, I never held it against you because our friendship was separate from our workship.
No, and I do think like one positive did come out of that situation, which was moving forward. I learned not to put you in a position that you were dangerously underqualified for. Because I
Yeah.
mean, there's things that you're really, really good at, and there's things you don't know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no shame in not knowing how to do something. There's plenty of things that I don't know how to do too,
Yep.
right? And so I learned not to put you in positions where I was setting you up for failure effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't speak entirely for you, but it seems like you learned to communicate with me. Like if I said, "Hey, I need you to do such and such," you learned after that point just to say, "You know what? I'm not comfortable with that. I'm willing to try,
Yep.
but if you're expecting to be good at it, I might not be, just telling you straight up front."
Yep. You are 100% right. Before that, I was always eager to learn and eager to please. And if you asked me to do something, then I would just do it. I don't know how to do that. Well, figure it out. And that's what I would do in a lot of the cases. Because, the stuff my grandfather taught me was woodworking. I didn't know how to do electrical. I knew how to do plumbing because of working with Keith, but I had no electrical and to be totally honest, I had no interest in doing electrical because the one time I did way back when it was not a pleasant experience. I got a buzz and it wasn't because I smoked or shot anything.
Yeah, you working with wires is like me working with pipes. Just
Yep. But at least I know even working with wires you need solder and you need flux.
but I don't know. I think some we could swap work stories pretty much all day, but I mean, I'm just thinking about like how did friendship affect work? I mean, like yeah, there was like some negative experiences for sure, but I think one of the most positive takeaways that we got from I think both becoming friends at work and also like spending time working with each other for each other, having good times, having bad times, sometimes satisfying the demands of the job, sometimes failing fucking miserably.
Mhm.
was we learned to communicate, and not just communicate in the sense of like, okay, I need to articulate my thoughts, but the other half of communication is hearing what's being said,
Hmm.
asking clarifying questions, putting emotions to the side and like just focusing on like, okay, what's the greater good, right? I mean, like we did one I can't remember what we were doing, but you came to me, you said like I'm sorry, brother, I'm not comfortable on the tall ladder.
Hmm.
And you were really beating yourself up over it. And it was an opportunity for me to like, and I had a choice. I could have mocked you, of course, but I chose instead to reassure you and say, you know what, like if you're not okay on the ladder, there's plenty of stuff you could do that's not on the ladder. Because if you go up the ladder and you're scared, your knees are going to shake, you're going to fall, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to like not do a good job. Not a big deal. I'm fine on the ladder. And there
Yep.
we go. It's like we each figured out our own place. And I think like the ladder really kind of was a metaphor for life because outside of the workplace, away from the ladder, that's the way it's been ever since.
Yep. Yeah, it was doing the signing at Diane's house, and that's where I left my ladder. I lost that ladder. Yep.
So Diane Bublitz, if you're listening and you still have Jason's ladder, he would really like it back.
Well, that was my fault. We made arrangements for me to go up and pick it up, and I just never did.
It's only been 9, 10 years.
Yeah. That example works really well for pretty much everything because it doesn't matter who, whether it's you and I or somebody else. I think the end result is what you put into the workplace, what you give in friendship in the workplace. A lot of the time is going to mirror what you get. You have those oddballs who, eventually you just learn that you just can't trust because they're going to either mock you or rat you out or whatever the situation is.
Andy.
Yeah. Um, with that being said, there's also exceptions to every rule where some of these people will never be friends that you meet in the workplace. But in the workplace, they're probably one of the few people you can trust. I've worked with people that I absolutely hate. Yeah, I'm talking to one. But I always knew if I talked to you about something, and I'm going to put it this way, when you were sober, I knew it wouldn't go anywhere. Even though we didn't like each other, I don't think trust was ever an issue for my side, anyways.
No, that's fair.
So look at what you put into the workplace. There are other things in Pam's comment that we can hit on another episode
Mm-hmm.
because that's a very good wealth of information and a few episodes worth of information there. But I think something we should all do is characterize ourselves when we go into a workplace, hold ourselves accountable because you can't hold other people accountable. The only people that are accountable for their actions is the person doing the action. So, weigh out your situations. Look at how people are treating you before you open your mouth, because that's going to tell you 7 times out of 10 whether or not that's someplace that you can go and grow.
Okay, well, I don't want to trample on that final thought. Why don't we just leave it there?
Okay.
Bye.